Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. So since in the last video we were talking about control flow statements, today I will talk about a topic that is quite important, and these are some of the most important keywords when using control flow statements. So the first one that we will talk about is the range keyword. So let's write here range. So range is something that is quite commonly used in the for loops, and an instance would be for I in range 5, let's say print I. So this would mean that for I in the numbers of 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, print I. So in the first iteration, I will be equal to 0, then to 1, then to 2, then to 3, and then to 4. So if I run that, you'll see that we print each and every of those numbers that I just mentioned. Now, with range, you can do many different operations. For example, you can choose range that starts from 5 and finishes at 10. So if I start this, you get 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can also add step, for example 3. So this means that you will start from 5 to 10 with steps of 3. So the first one will be 5, then 8 is 5 plus 3. So then you will print 8. And since if you add 3 more, this becomes higher than 10, you will not print anything else. If you do steps of 2, then you will have 5, 7, and 9. So always remember, in range, the first number is the start, second number is the end, third number is a step. You can always avoid writing the step or the first number. You can, if you want, provide either the last number or the first number and the last number. Let's see another instance of range, since this is quite important parameter. For example, if I create a list of different names, so let's do Mary, add a little lamb, and you can do for I in range length of A, and then we can print I and A at position I. Okay, so let's see what we've done here. So how much is the length of A, sorry. So the length of A is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this will be equal to 5, which means that here we simply say for I in range 5, print I. So in the first step, I will be equal to 1, and A at position I. Actually, at first step, this will be equal to 0 because we start from 0 to 4. So A at position 0 will be Mary. So the first one will be 0 and Mary. Then we would have 1 and hat, and so on and so forth. So if you have a list and you want to loop over this list and get both the location and the element, you can use length in order to loop over every element of this list. And this is something that is used very often by the Python developers. So let's run that code, and you can see at position 0 we have Mary, then we have 3 for little and 4 for lamb. I think you got the idea. Okay, so let's now talk about some of the other keywords that are quite important into the loops. And those would be the break, continue, and else. So you already know about the else keyword as part of if statement. However, it could also be used in for statement too. So if else is written into a for loop, it is executed when the loop is in the situation where it has condition that is false. So if I write here or n in range 5, and let's actually, instead of 5, we're going to create a list. Let's do values, and let's write here 6, 5, 25, 3, and 8. So let's do range length of the values. Okay, and let's do if n percent, actually let's do if values at n percent is equal to 0. So this would mean that, for example, we get 6, and if 6 divided by 2 has no remaining, which means that the remaining is equal to 0, then I would like to print loop exited at the first even. And after that, I will put break. So break would mean that the loop will break immediately after we find the first even number. Okay, actually let's print this even number. So I will do values at position n, wherever this number is, and then I will print that statement here. So let's run that, and you can see that we broke the loop at 6. If I remove the break statement, you'll see that we would actually get two numbers, 6 and 8, because we have two even numbers. However, with the break keyword, this means that as soon as we reach this keyword, our for loop is going to break. So this is how the break keyword is used. Now if we remove it, as you saw, we're getting this for loop executed. So if the for loop don't get broken, or when it's exhausted, which means that all the possible values have been executed, then you can also specify some condition what would happen after that. And this is done with the else. So most commonly else is used in combination with if, but sometimes in very few cases you can use it as part of the for loop. And I can write here print I, and this will specify what would happen exactly after the for loop finishes. So if I run this, you'll see that once the for loop finish, we see hi. If for example I have break here, since the for loop will not get exhausted, you will not see hi because all of those statements will broken or will break out from them. Okay, great. So this is about the break and continue, break and else. But how about continue? So continue is usually used when you want, let's say, certain condition from a for loop not to be executed. For example, if I write for num in range 2, then if num%2 is equal to 0, or this means if the number is even, we can print count an even number, and then we can print the number. Okay, and then we can print for the rest of the numbers found an odd number, and then we can print the number. So is it going to actually print the even numbers here and the odd numbers here? Well, let's see. What do you think? Let's run this, and you can see that, for example, 2 is printed 2 times, not only 1 time here. Right? So we say found even number 2 and found odd number 2. That's weird because 2 is not odd. So you can see the pattern that basically the odd numbers get printed once in the correct way, right? So 5 and 3, they are printed correctly. However, the even numbers, they are printed 2 times. And if you think about it, there is a very good logic behind it. So once this if statement is executed for an even number, then the code continues here and the same number gets executed within the print statement here. So how can we prevent that? Well, I actually use this example to show you the power of the continue keyword. So if you write here continue, this would mean that once the execution reaches this keyword, we will not continue until the end of the code, but we will return back to the for loop and we will take the next element. For example, if we have 2 here, let's say, we would come here into this if statement, we would print found an even number 2, then we will reach the keyword continue and we will go back and take the next element, which would be 3. So 2 should not be printed 2 times. So let's run that, and yes, you can see that once we run the function with the continue keyword, you can see that after the even number 2, we don't get it printed a second time. So this is how continue works. Okay, so let's comment this out. And the next keyword that I'll talk about is the pass and match keywords. So let's talk first about pass, because pass is more simple. So pass, guys, is actually used in loops or functions, even in classes, which we haven't talked about yet. But what it basically do is preventing the appearance of errors. For example, if I write while true and I run it, I'll get an error because we have a while statement, but we don't have anything inside. So if you want to write a while loop or for loop, but you don't want your program to fail, but you haven't decided yet what you exactly write inside, you can simply write pass. If you do this, simply this line will pass and you will not return an error. The same is with classes, for example. So let's do class and let's call it my class. And if I write the pass keyword here, let me comment out the while loop. And if I run it, you'll see that the program executes correctly. If I remove the pass keyword, we'll get an error here because you created a class that has nothing inside. So this is why pass keyword is useful when you want to build a structure that you don't know what you put inside yet. And finally, we will talk about the match keyword, which is also quite useful if you have different cases. And as an example, I will show you how you can use it, for example, to define errors. So let's do match status, and you can do here case 400, and actually let's define first status here. So let's say status would be equal to 418. Okay? Those are the standard HTTP errors that you sometimes receive when you try to enter to some browser in internet, right? You can receive error 400, let's say, and you can use a structure to define the errors. So if you receive 400, then you can return, let's say, bad request, right? If you receive, for example, 404, you can return error not found, or case 418 would return, or actually let's here write it with print, it might be easier. So let's do print, okay, and then print, and here we can return, for example, bad number. Actually this is not any type of error, I just made it up, okay, and that's it. So what we say here is basically trying to match some of the options for status, and let's say if status is 418, then we'll return bad number, right? Let's run that, and you can see that we're printing bad number. If it is, for example, 415, we return nothing because we don't have this defined. So you have number that is not defined, you can actually write case underscore, and then you can do print I don't know, right? So when you run it like this, if it's any other number than the ones defined, you will print I don't know. And this is how you work with case and with match. Basically the whole statement here is called match case. So this was all about that I wanted to share with you guys about keywords. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in our next video.